Just days after Alcaraz made history by becoming the youngest man to complete the career Grand Slam, his former coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero, quietly unfollowed him on Instagram. And with that one deliberate action, Ferrero revealed more about their split than any interview ever could. Ferrero has finally cut ties completely with Carlos Alcaraz. This was about pain, pride, and the devastating realization that the person you helped build into a legend didn't need you anymore. And what Ferrero's unfollow reveals about the emotional wreckage beneath tennis's most successful partnerships changes everything we thought we understood about coaching relationships in professional sports. The timeline tells you everything you need to know about how quickly love can turn to silence. December 17, 2025. Alcaraz announces the shocking split from Ferrero after 7 years together. The statement is diplomatic, grateful, tinged with sadness. Ferrero responds with his own message, ending with 4 words that reveal his true feelings. I wish I could have continued. January 12 to February 1, 2026. Alcaraz arrives at the Australian Open without Ferrero for the first time in his professional career. Questions swirl. Doubts surface. Can he win without the man who molded him from a talented teenager into a 6-time Grand Slam champion? Alcaraz destroys those doubts, marching through the draw without dropping a set until the final, where he defeats Novak Djokovic to complete the career Grand Slam at 22 years old. February 4, 2026. Ferrero unfollows Alcaraz on Instagram. Not just Alcaraz, he unfollows the physio, the fitness coach, everyone except new coach Samuel Lopez and agent Albert Molina. The message is unmistakable. I'm cutting ties. I'm done watching this without being part of it. The precision of that unfollow is what makes it so devastating. Ferrero didn't rage quit social media. He didn't delete his account. He made selective, calculated decisions about who to remove from his digital life. He kept following Lopez, the man who replaced him. He kept following Molina, who handles business. But Alcaraz himself? The player he'd coached since age 16? The young man he'd poured 7 years of his life into? Gone. Tennis fans immediately noticed. Within hours, screenshots circulated across Twitter. Speculation erupted. Was Ferrero angry that Alcaraz didn't mention him in the victory speech? Was it simply too painful to watch his former student succeed without him? Or was this something deeper? A final acknowledgement that their relationship had fractured beyond repair? To understand why this single social media action matters so profoundly, you need to understand what Ferrero and Alcaraz built together. When 15-year-old Carlos Alcaraz arrived at the Ferrero Tennis Academy in Villena, Spain, he was talented but raw. Ferrero, the 2003 French Open champion and former world #1, turned down coaching requests from established top players to work with this kid from Murcia. It was a gamble, an investment, a relationship built on the belief that together they could create something extraordinary. And extraordinary is exactly what they created. Under Ferrero's guidance, Alcaraz won his first Grand Slam at the 2022 US Open at age 19, becoming the youngest world #1 in ATP history. They conquered Wimbledon in 2023, defeating 7-time champion Djokovic in an epic final. They won the French Open and defended Wimbledon in 2024. They reclaimed the French Open and US Open in 2025, with Alcaraz finishing as year-end #1 for the second time. 24 tour-level titles, 6 Grand Slams, 8 Masters 1,000 crowns, 2 year-end #1 finishes. These weren't just statistics. They were the product of Ferrero's tactical brilliance, his understanding of Alcaraz's psychology, his ability to manage the explosive talent of a generational player. Ferrero won ATP Coach of the Year in both 2022 and 2025. The tennis world recognized him as one of the best in the business. He wasn't just Alcaraz's coach. He was the architect of his rise, the steady hand that kept him grounded through the chaos of sudden fame and crushing expectations. So when they split in December, it shocked everyone. After the most successful season of their partnership, 2 Grand Slams, year-end #1, why would Alcaraz make this change? The public statements were diplomatic. Alcaraz talked about reaching the top together and feeling that if their paths had to separate, it should be from that pinnacle. Ferrero spoke about difficult decisions and wishing he could have continued. Both emphasized gratitude and respect. But beneath those carefully crafted words, tension had been building for months. According to sources close to the situation, significant disagreements emerged between Ferrero and Alcaraz's father, Carlos Alcaraz Sr., about how to manage the young champion's career. The Netflix documentary, My Way, which showcased Alcaraz's philosophy of prioritizing enjoyment alongside excellence, reportedly exposed fundamental differences in approach. Ferrero, known for his disciplined, almost Scandinavian-like sobriety, clashed with Alcaraz's more exuberant showmanship and family-centric decision-making. Former Brazilian tennis star Fernando Meligeni, who knew Ferrero from their playing days, suggested the split reflected deeper issues about commitment levels, lifestyle choices, and family involvement. Contract negotiations broke down. Disagreements surfaced about training locations. Ferrero wanted Alcaraz at his academy in Villena. Alcaraz wanted to train in Murcia near his family, while promoting his own academy. Ferrero later admitted, in an emotional interview with Marca, that he was hurt by how things ended. "I gave everything. I poured my soul into this project," he said. The pain in those words was palpable. This wasn't just a professional relationship ending. It was a deeply personal betrayal for someone who'd invested 7 years of his life into building someone else's dream. Carlos Santos, Alcaraz's childhood coach, offered perhaps the most revealing insight. Carlos's father is the one who's really in charge. Carlitos has nothing to do with it. I mean, Carlitos would have continued for as long as Juan Carlos wanted. Think about what that statement reveals. Alcaraz himself didn't want the split, his family did. Ferrero was fired by people who weren't even his direct employers, dismissed despite winning Coach of the Year and guiding his player to year-end #1. The professional humiliation must have been excruciating. And then came the Australian Open. Ferrero gave interviews throughout the tournament, speaking graciously about Alcaraz's performance. "It is not easy what it feels like," he admitted to 10 Golf. "I'm happy with how he's playing and the fact that he hasn't lost a set in the competition yet." There's something almost masochistic about those interviews. Ferrero positioned himself as the supportive former coach, maintaining dignity while watching his replacement guide, Alcaraz, through the tournament. He kept following Alcaraz on social media. He continued praising his former student publicly. He played the part everyone expected, the gracious mentor who wishes his former protégé nothing but success. But that performance could only last so long. When Alcaraz defeated Djokovic in the final to complete the career Grand Slam, achieving the historic milestone that had eluded him in their years together, something inside Ferrero broke. Because Alcaraz didn't mention him. Not once. During the on-court trophy ceremony, Alcaraz thanked his current team for pushing him through an emotional roller coaster, while not listening to what people were saying before coming to Australia. He praised the people, in that corner right now. Present tense, current team only. In his press conference, when asked directly if winning without Ferrero provided extra motivation, Alcaraz said, "Not really, to be honest. I don't listen to the people who have doubts. I came here just to play for myself, for my team. We know how hard we worked to be ready for this tournament. I'm just happy to prove all the people were wrong." Notice the language. My team. Present tense. How hard we worked. Recent past. No acknowledgement of the 7 years that came before. No gratitude for the foundation Ferrero built. No recognition that every technical skill, every tactical understanding, every mental tool Alcaraz used to win that final came from Ferrero's coaching. Even Tony Nadal, Rafael Nadal's uncle and former coach, found Alcaraz's omission disturbing. "It bothered me. You cannot forget Juan Carlos' work all those years," Nadal told Radio Estadio. "I would not have liked it if, when I left Rafa, he had acted like this with Carlos Moya. I'm sure Samuel Lopez has done a great job in these 2 months, but he can't forget Ferrero's work over the years." Tony Nadal coached his nephew to 16 of his 22 Grand Slams before stepping away in 2017. He understood the unique psychology of coaching relationships, the investment, the sacrifice, the weird parent-child dynamic that develops. And even he was shocked by Alcaraz's complete erasure of Ferrero from his moment of triumph. For Ferrero, watching those interviews must have been agonizing. He'd given Alcaraz 7 years of his life, turned down other opportunities, poured his soul into this project, won Coach of the Year twice, helped create one of the greatest young champions in tennis history. And now, in Alcaraz's moment of ultimate achievement, he didn't even rate a mention. The contrast with Alcaraz's statement from December makes the omission even more pointed. When announcing the split, Alcaraz wrote, "Thank you for turning my childhood dreams into reality. We started this journey when I was just a kid, and throughout all this time you've accompanied me on an incredible adventure, both on and off the court." That was December. Beautiful, grateful, emotional. But by February, after winning without Ferrero, silence. Complete erasure. As if those 7 years never happened. And that's when Ferrero clicked unfollow. The symbolism is devastating. In the digital age, unfollowing someone isn't just removing them from your feed. It's a public declaration of distance. It's saying, I don't want to see this anymore. I don't want to watch you succeed without me. I'm done pretending this doesn't hurt. Ferrero didn't just unfollow Alcaraz. He unfollowed the physio who'd worked alongside him for years, the fitness coach who'd been part of the team, everyone who remained in Alcaraz's orbit. He was cutting ties not just with his former student, but with the entire world they'd built together. The only exceptions? Samuel Lopez, who replaced him, and Albert Molina, Alcaraz's agent. Think about the psychological calculation behind those choices. Lopez represents the professional reality. He's doing Ferrero's old job, and maintaining that connection preserves some dignity. Molina handles business, and cutting him would be unprofessional. But everyone else? Gone. Including the player he'd devoted 7 years to creating. What makes this so psychologically complex is that Ferrero's pain is entirely understandable, while simultaneously being completely unfair to Alcaraz. Ferrero's perspective: I gave you everything. I turned down other opportunities. I poured my soul into making you great. We achieved historic success together. And the moment you don't need me anymore, you discard me. You won't even mention my name when you achieve the dream we chased together. You've erased me from your story. Alcaraz's perspective: you wanted to continue, but your vision for my career didn't align with my family's. The contractual negotiations broke down. You wanted me training at your academy. I wanted to be with my family. The relationship had run its course. Moving forward means focusing on the present, not dwelling on the past. I'm grateful for what we built, but I can't live in nostalgia when I'm trying to create my future. Both perspectives are valid. Both are simultaneously true. And that's what makes this so tragic. The psychology of coaching relationships in individual sports is uniquely complex. Unlike team sports where coaches manage multiple players and success is collectively shared, tennis coaching is intensely personal. It's essentially a professional marriage. Two people traveling the world together, spending more time with each other than with their own families, their successes and failures intimately intertwined. Ferrero wasn't just Alcaraz's technical advisor. He was his confidant, his psychological anchor, his tactical mastermind, his emotional support system. For 7 years, they were a unit. Ferrero's identity became inextricably linked to Alcaraz's success. When people saw Alcaraz triumph, they saw Ferrero's coaching genius. When Alcaraz struggled, Ferrero worked overtime to fix it. And then, suddenly, that partnership ends. Not because of failure. They were coming off their best season ever. Not because of scandal or betrayal. Just because the people around Alcaraz decided the relationship had run its course. For Ferrero, watching Alcaraz win the Australian Open must have triggered a psychological crisis. Because Alcaraz's success without him threatens the narrative Ferrero built about their partnership. If Alcaraz can win Grand Slams without Ferrero, what does that say about Ferrero's contribution? Was he essential, or just along for the ride? Did he build a champion, or did a champion tolerate him until ready to move on? These questions strike at the core of a coach's professional identity. The ego blow isn't just about being replaced. It's about wondering if you were ever as important as you thought you were. And then Alcaraz doesn't mention him. Doesn't acknowledge the foundation. Treats those 7 years like they're just background context, rather than the essential building blocks of everything he's achieved. That's when the pain becomes unbearable. That's when continuing to follow Alcaraz on social media, watching him celebrate victories, post training videos, thank his new team, becomes psychological torture. That's when the only healthy option is distance. The unfollow isn't petty. It's self-preservation. But here's where Ferrero's action reveals something even deeper about the emotional complexity of their split. He's struggling to accept that love and gratitude don't always look the way we want them to. Alcaraz has repeatedly expressed gratitude for Ferrero's work. In interviews before and after the split, he's acknowledged that Ferrero made him the player he is. I've got to say that I'm really grateful for these 7 years I've been with Juan Carlos, Alcaraz said at the Australian Open. I learned a lot. Probably thanks to him, I'm the player that I am right now. But Alcaraz expressed that gratitude privately, in press conferences and interviews. He didn't perform it in the moment Ferrero needed to see it. The victory speech, the post-match celebration, the public acknowledgement of who built the foundation for this achievement. And that's the tragedy. Alcaraz probably does feel genuine gratitude. But he's 22 years old, navigating the psychological complexity of moving forward after a difficult split. He's trying to prove to doubters that he can succeed without Ferrero. He's focusing on the present team to avoid dwelling on painful history. He's protecting himself emotionally by creating distance from the relationship that ended. All of that is psychologically healthy for Alcaraz. But it's devastating for Ferrero. Ferrero needed public acknowledgement. He needed Alcaraz to say, in that moment of triumph, "None of this would be possible without Juan Carlos Ferrero. He built me from the ground up, and I'll be forever grateful." Ferrero needed to feel that his 7 years of sacrifice, his professional and emotional investment, would be permanently etched into Alcaraz's legacy. Instead, he got silence. And silence, in these circumstances, feels like erasure. What Ferrero's unfollow reveals is that he's reached the breaking point where maintaining a public connection to Alcaraz causes more pain than cutting ties. He can't watch anymore. He can't pretend it doesn't hurt. He can't be the gracious former coach who smiles through the agony of being replaced. And maybe that's healthier than the alternative. Think about what it would mean for Ferrero to keep following Alcaraz. Every training video would remind him of techniques he taught. Every victory would highlight success he's no longer part of. Every photo of Alcaraz with Lopez would emphasize his replacement. Every interview where Alcaraz talks about his team would exclude Ferrero from that category. Following Alcaraz means choosing daily psychological damage. It means volunteering for repeated emotional injury. It means watching the person you built achieve greatness without you and pretending you're happy about it. The unfollow is Ferrero finally choosing himself. Finally acknowledging that he can be genuinely happy for Alcaraz's success while also needing distance to process his own pain. Finally accepting that love sometimes means letting go, not just professionally, but emotionally and digitally too. But the timing reveals his breaking point. Ferrero could handle the split announcement. He could handle watching the Australian Open from distance. He could even handle giving gracious interviews about Alcaraz's performance. But he couldn't handle being erased from the narrative of Alcaraz's greatest achievement. That's what finally broke him. The internet, predictably, had strong reactions. Some fans attacked Ferrero as pathetic and jealous, unable to handle Alcaraz's success without him. Others defended him, arguing that anyone in his position would be devastated by such public erasure. The debate revealed how little we understand about the emotional complexity of these relationships, because both responses miss the point. Ferrero isn't jealous of Alcaraz's success. He's mourning the relationship that created it. He's not being petty. He's protecting his mental health. He's not trying to punish Alcaraz. He's trying to survive the psychological aftermath of being professionally and personally discarded. The fact that Ferrero has moved on to coaching professional golfer Angel Ayora adds another layer to this story. He's not sitting around wallowing. He's actively rebuilding his professional identity outside of tennis. The golf coaching represents a fresh start, a way to prove his value isn't dependent on Alcaraz's continued success. But even that pivot highlights the wound. Ferrero built his recent legacy as the coach who created Carlos Alcaraz. Now he's starting over in a different sport, working with a young golfer nobody's heard of, trying to prove he can develop talent independently of the champion he left behind. It's both admirably resilient and profoundly sad. The Ferrero Tennis Academy's response to Alcaraz's victory adds yet another complication. The Academy posted congratulations on social media, but notably, Ferrero himself remained silent. The Academy praised Lopez and Team Carlitos, while Ferrero unfollowed them all. That split between institutional response and personal action reveals the impossible position Ferrero occupies. Professionally, his academy needs to maintain good relationships with Alcaraz. He's their most successful product, their best advertisement. But personally, Ferrero needs distance to heal. So the academy congratulates while Ferrero withdraws. The institution celebrates while the man mourns. What this entire situation reveals is that we fundamentally misunderstand coaching relationships in tennis. We treat them like business partnerships that can be dissolved with professional courtesy and mutual respect. We expect coaches to graciously accept being replaced and to cheer on their former students without processing their own emotional devastation. But these aren't just professional relationships. They're quasi-parental bonds where coaches invest years of emotional labor into developing young players. Ferrero watched Alcaraz grow from 16 to 22, from teenager to adult. He was there for first victories and crushing defeats, for moments of brilliance and episodes of doubt, for celebrations and crises. You can't spend 7 years in that level of intimacy and then cleanly separate when the professional relationship ends. The emotional attachment doesn't respect contractual boundaries. And maybe that's the real lesson here. Coaching relationships in tennis need to be understood as the complex, emotionally fraught partnerships they actually are, not the sanitized professional arrangements we pretend they are. Ferrero's unfollow isn't weakness, it's honesty. It's acknowledging that he's human, that he's hurting, that watching Alcaraz succeed without him while erasing him from the narrative is more than he can psychologically handle. Alcaraz's silence about Ferrero isn't cruelty, it's self-protection. It's a 22-year-old trying to move forward after a difficult split, trying to prove himself independently, trying to build his future without dwelling on complicated history. Both responses are entirely human. Both make sense given their respective positions. And both highlight the impossible emotional complexity of relationships that combine professional partnership with quasi-parental intimacy. The question now is whether they'll ever reconcile. Whether time will create enough distance for Ferrero to process his pain, and for Alcaraz to recognize what he owes his former coach. Whether they'll eventually reach a place where they can celebrate what they built together without the raw wounds of how it ended. Or whether this is just how these relationships end in professional tennis. Messily, painfully, with unfollows and erasures and emotional devastation beneath the diplomatic public statements. Because here's the truth nobody wants to admit. Sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes gratitude coexists with the need for distance. Sometimes the healthiest thing is letting go, even when it breaks your heart. Sometimes relationships that created something beautiful still end in pain. And sometimes a single unfollow says more than 1,000 words ever could.